Alright guys, we're going to talk worms. Now, I'm just going to breeze through the rigging styles because if you go back, once again, go back to the tubes. If you have a question when I talk about Carolina rigging, Texas rigging, anything like that, split shot rigging, if you have a question about that, refer back to the tube rigging. It's all in that, okay? I don't want to drag each one of these out when you can just refer back to the other one, alright? What I want to do is talk about the profiles of worms. In profiles in fishing, be it crankbaits, and down the road you're going to see videos on this, guys. You look at a bait and you walk into a big sporting goods shop and you see all those different profiles, be it a worm, be it a topwater frog, be it a crankbait, jerkbait. You don't understand, a lot of anglers don't understand why and when. And that's the biggest problem. They just go, well, that looks good. Well, maybe it had a big wide lip and you needed a narrow tight lip, to change the action. They wanted a wide wobble and you had a tight wobble. You got to understand that. What I'm going to do for this segment is just talk about worms, and what I've done is laid out basically the 4 different profiles of worms that you're going to find. And the way a worm's created, it tells you a lot about it, and it tells you what it's going to do for you. If you should be fishing it in clear water, if the fish are aggressive or if they're negative, which worm do I choose? A lot of people just look at a worm and say, well, it's a worm. Okay, and you got to understand the difference. Trust me, you got to understand the difference. The first one we're going to look at is just a straight tail worm, guys. This is a Reaction Innovations Flirt 695. Great bait. Our most go-to technique with this would be the shaky system. If you're not familiar with the shaky system, look in your tackle selection, look up shaky system. Okay, with this bait, you'll notice straight, no curl tail on it. A little bit of ribbing here across the back. When you look at a bait, guys, if it's got ribs or a tail, that tells you about the vibration it puts off. This one, no tail, no curl tail at all. Okay, so it's going to slide through the water, real subtle. A little bit of ribbing here, it's going to move just a little bit of water. Believe it or not, those fish can feel that. They can feel that water moving across there. They feel that with their lateral line. Now, straight tail worm, you can Texas rig it with a bullet weight. You can Carolina rig it. You can rig it on a shaky system. If you want to do a split shot rig, I recommend a straight bait like this. Remember the split shot rig? Like I said, refer back. All we're going to do with this one is using a smaller hook. This one looks about a size 1. Nose hook it. We got our split shot. Toss it out. Falls nice and seductive. They come up, boom, they eat it. But split shotting, guys, try to go with a straight tail bait like this. Finesse. We're starting with finesse. The fish are negative. They're neutral. They're not wanting to eat. You're trying to force them. This is what you want. The next step up from this is the old standby. This is just a 7-inch Berkeley curl tail worm. Now you can see this one's got ribbing through the body. Not big ribbing, but it does have ribbing through the body, so that's going to move some water. And then we've got the curl tail back here. As you're moving this thing along, it's just kind of doing a little swimming. Very subtle. Not quite as subtle as this, but it's the next step up. This one here, if I'm going to worm fish, I usually go with something like this first to kind of find the mood. If they're just kind of picking it up and moving it, I'll know that, hey, we're in a little bit of a neutral mood. If you really feel them pounding on it, then I might step up to the next one, which I'll show you. Techniques for this, guys, that I like for this one, Texas rigging, Carolina rigging, and then something that's kind of a lost art with curl tail worms like this is just the old jig head. Okay, watching all these videos, you see me put a jig head on everything. It's like Texas rig. I like to put a jig head on everything. What I like to do here, guys, and this is kind of a lost art. Nobody does it anymore. Just come through like so, and look at this as your first swim bait, guys. This was kind of the first swim bait, believe it or not. Thread it up on there, push it up on, and there it is. Now you're thinking, wow, that's ugly. Okay. What this does, guys, is just cast it out. You can drop it down weed edges, you can drop it down structure, but you swim it. Most worms you're dragging or you're shaking. Toss it out, let it drop, and I like to fish it on a light jig head, guys. 16th ounce, 8th ounce would be the heaviest I'd probably go with this because it doesn't have a lot of drag as it falls, so it doesn't take much weight to get it down there. I throw it out, I let it sink, count down 5, 10, 15, whatever, what depth you want to go, and then you simply just start reeling it. Maybe you just kind of lift the rod a little bit, and you reel, lift the rod a little bit, and let it fall. You're just swimming it through the water. Nobody swims worms anymore, and I say nobody, there's probably guys doing it, obviously, but it's a dying technique that nobody does. And in the summertime, when those bass get out in the deep cabbage beds, or you get smallmouth out in open water, swimming a worm, guys, can be deadly because people don't do it anymore, and you're fishing suspended fish. So give that one a shot. Don't throw that in the tackle box and not use it, because it does work excellent. Now, the next step up from this, which would be a little bit more of an aggressive worm, would be your ribbon tail worm. Now, if you look here at your ribbon tail worm, this is a 7-inch Berkeley ribbon tail. You've got quite a bit of tail back here, and also if you look at your ribbing, now the ribbing is getting bigger. Okay, these are pushing more water than these. Okay, see how these are bigger, heavier, bigger indentations, pushing more water. When you move this tail is moving a lot more volume of water than is this curl tail. This one here, guys, it's a great, the old 7 and 10-inch power worms, they're awesome. Tend to use those in the summertime. We use them sometimes pre-spawn too, the 10-inchers too. There's a friend of ours, he runs a 10-inch, that's all he runs. It seems like that's all he throws, and he catches big bass on it. So, but it moves a lot of water. So if you were fishing this worm as an example of when should I change, you started out with this worm and they were biting hard and you were getting a lot of strikes, and all of a sudden they quit. First thing I'd do, same color, same basic length, but I'd go to this. Okay, this guy right here, rig Texas, rig it on a lighter weight so it falls slower, puts off less vibration. That may be the key. If that doesn't work, go to the straight tail like this on a shaky system. Throw it out, let it sit, shake a little bit, just let it sit there, okay? Guys, you can push fish away from you with too much vibration and sound. I can't preach that enough, too much vibration and sound. So, there you go, there's the next step up. Rigging with this one, guys, if you wanted to put that on a jig head and swim it, by all means do it. That tail is just going to push more water. I don't like to rig this nail weight, or excuse me, with a split shot rig, excuse me. I will rig these Carolina rig, and I will rig them Texas rig. That's my preferred style. If you want to rig it up on a drop shot, by all means drop shot it. That's fine. Now, the next one and the most violent mover of water is the pulse worm. Okay, we've got a big curl tail back here. See how wide this body is? See these big ribs in here? That's moving a ton of water. If we had muddy conditions, we had cloudy overcast, we had to move some water to get some attention to this bait, this is what I'd be using. A lot of times we're using this in stained and dirty water. Okay, clear water, no action at all. You'll find that clear water equals finesse a lot of times. Muddy water along with color, you got to make some water move, so you're using something with the ribs. That's the pulse worm for you. With this guy right here, Carolina rigging, Texas rigging, that's all we do. I don't swim these or anything. Excuse me, Carolina and Texas rig right there. Moving lots of water. We need to get the attention to the bait. Now, something that a lot of guys don't do, and it's a technique that's out there but you don't hear much of it, is this. You got your straight tail bait like this. What we'll do here is I'll grab my sinking minnow loader right here. I'm going to slide that bait up in there, and I'm going to slide off one of these O-rings right here. Get my hands working here. Slide off one of these O-rings onto here. What I'm going to do is just work this thing up to where it's at the collar, at or near the collar. Okay. Now, what I got, I'm just a little bit off the collar, which is fine. This one's got a lot of collar, I'm saying is the collar on the worm, guys. Now what you'll do here, and this is a 4 to 6 pound test presentation. We're going to grab our nail weight, which I threw down here somewhere. Where did it go to here, guys? Here, let me just grab another one. We're going to grab our nail weights. There's one right over here. I love these nail weights, guys. We use them for all things. There's our nail weight. Now what we're going to do, in the head of the worm, and once again this may vary, guys, the size of this weight, punch this guy right straight up in there like that. Get it all the way up inside. Now what we're going to do, we would use, this one's a little bit small, I'd probably use a 1/0 for this. Spinning reel, 4 to 6 pound test, come up underneath this right here, just like we did with the Senko wacky rigging, okay? Actually, you want it to go, I rigged it up backwards. You want the hook up. So you're coming from the head through like this, okay? Toss this guy out, and it's going to fall nose first. What happens when it hits, this bait is buoyant, so it wants to float up. That nose is going to come down like that. Now as you twitch this, the bait's going to bend and it's going to drag that nose along the ground, just like that. And when you stop it, that tail is going to be straight up in the air. Now a lot of times that's a finesse presentation, guys, that the fish have not seen. It takes some discipline because it's super lightweight, falls slow, but it's something they have not seen. That nose weight comes down and hits, you drag, you're dragging that nose along the bottom, you stop it, that worm's standing straight up. So that's one of those techniques that you don't see much about, but it can be an absolute killer. You just got to make sure and put that O-ring on there if you've got we call a Senko loader. Load it up on there, because if you just try to hook that through there, you're going to cast it and it's going to tear it off. This way, that rubber right there is taking all the abuse when you cast it and you're making your baits last. But give that one a try, guys, right there for the straight tail worms. It works incredible.